The scorching Lagos sun beat down mercilessly on the busy intersection of Victoria Island. Cars honked impatiently in the gridlock traffic, their engines adding to the already suffocating heat. Among the chaos, a young woman named Kemi moved gracefully between the vehicles, balancing a large ball of pure water sachets on her head. "Buy water! Buy cold water!" she called out, her voice somehow melodious despite the exhaustion that lined her face. Kemi was 23, but life had aged her beyond her years. Every morning before dawn, she would walk 3 miles to buy water sachets wholesale, then spend the entire day under the brutal sun, selling them for just a few naira profit each. Her threadbare dress had been washed so many times that its original color was now just a memory. Her sandals, held together with wire and prayers, left blisters on her feet that she ignored. But Kemi never complained. She had a sick mother at home, diabetes slowly eating away at the woman who had sacrificed everything to raise her alone. The medication was expensive, the hospital bills mounting, and Kemi's water selling was their only lifeline. On this particular Tuesday, the heat was unbearable. Even the usually busy intersection seemed sluggish, as if the sun had drained the energy from everyone. Kemi had been walking since 6 a.m., and it was now 2 p.m. She had sold only half her water, and her throat was parched. Ironically, she couldn't afford to drink her own merchandise. Every bottle meant the difference between having dinner or going to bed hungry. As she approached a line of luxury cars waiting at the traffic light, her eyes fell on a sleek black Mercedes-Benz with tinted windows. The air conditioning was clearly running, as she could see the cool mist escaping from the slightly open window. Suddenly, the back window rolled down completely. "You, water girl!" a sharp, authoritative voice called out. Kemi hurried over, hope flickering in her chest. A sale to someone in such an expensive car might mean a good tip. The woman inside was stunning. Perfectly applied makeup, gold jewelry that caught the sunlight, and a dress that probably cost more than Kemi made in 6 months. Her name was Adunni, and she was the wife of a prominent Lagos businessman. "How much for 1 bottle?" Adunni asked, examining her perfectly manicured nails. 200 naira, ma'am," Kemi replied respectfully, carefully lifting 1 sachet from her bowl. Adunni laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 200 naira for that dirty water? Do you know who I am? I don't pay street prices." Kemi's heart sank, but she kept her voice steady. "Ma, this is the normal price. It's bottled water, very clean." "Shut up," Adunni snapped. "I'll give you 100 naira. Take it or leave it." 100 naira. That was barely enough to cover the cost price. Kemi would make no profit, but she desperately needed every money she could get. "Okay, ma, 100 naira, she whispered, handing over the water. But instead of taking the money, Adunni snatched the sachet and tossed a 50 naira note out the window. It landed in the gutter. "50 naira is more than enough for someone like you," Adunni said with a cruel smile. "Now get away from my car before you scratch it with your dirty hands." Kemi bent down to retrieve the money from the dirty water in the gutter, her cheeks burning with humiliation. Other motorists and pedestrians were staring, some shaking their heads in disgust at Adunni's behavior. "Please, ma, you said 100 naira, Kemi said quietly, still kneeling by the gutter. Adunni's eyes flashed with anger. "Are you questioning me? Do you know my husband owns half the buildings on this island?" She opened her car door suddenly, hitting Kemi and knocking her water bowl to the ground. Dozens of water sachets scattered across the hot asphalt, some bursting on impact. "Oh no!" Kemi gasped, scrambling to gather her scattered merchandise. Each sachet represented precious income, and now many were damaged beyond sale. "That's what you get for being greedy," Adunni said coldly. The traffic light turned green, and Adunni's Mercedes roared away, leaving Kemi sitting in the middle of the road, surrounded by her ruined water sachets. An elderly Malam who had witnessed everything rushed to help her gather the scattered sachets. "My daughter, I am so sorry," he said gently. "Some people have no fear of God." Tears stung Kemi's eyes, but she blinked them back. "It's okay, Baba. Thank you for helping." As she counted her remaining sellable packets, her heart sank further.
More than half were damaged or lost. She had barely enough left to make 2,000 naira for the entire day.
That evening, Kemi trudged home to their small room in Makoko, the floating slum. Her mother was lying on their shared mat, her breathing labored. "Kemi, is that you?" her mother called weakly. "Yes, Mama. How are you feeling?" "The same, my daughter. Did you have a good day?" Kemi forced a smile. "Yes, Mama. Rest now." But privately, Kemi was terrified. They had no money for her mother's medication this week. She would have to find a way to borrow, if not, the mother's health condition would seriously deteriorate. 3 days later, the miracle happened. Kemi was at the same intersection, having worked for 3 days to replace her damaged stock when she noticed a commotion ahead. An elderly man in expensive but dusty clothing was walking slowly, seemingly confused and disoriented. His fine agbada was torn, and he looked lost. "Help! Please, someone help!" he called out, his voice hoarse and desperate. But the busy Lagos crowd did what Lagos crowds do best. They looked the other way. Everyone was too busy, too suspicious, too wrapped up in their own struggles to help a stranger. Kemi watched as person after person walked past the old man. He stumbled, nearly falling, and she could see he was dehydrated and exhausted. Without hesitation, she left her selling spot and approached him. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked gently. The man looked up at her with grateful eyes. "My daughter, I am very thirsty. I have been walking for hours. I was robbed and they took everything, my money, my phone, even my shoes." Kemi looked down and indeed saw that his feet were bare and bleeding from walking on the hot asphalt. "I haven't had water since yesterday," he continued. "Please, if you could spare just a little." Kemi didn't hesitate. She took her largest bottle of water and handed it to him. "Drink, sir. Drink as much as you need." The old man's hands shook as he accepted the water. He drank deeply, gratefully, tears mixing with the water on his cheeks. "Thank you, my daughter. God will bless you for this kindness." "It's nothing, sir. Are you hungry?" Kemi reached into her small purse and pulled out 500 naira she had made that morning, money she needed for her mother's medication. She pressed it into the old man's hand. "Please, buy some food. And here." She looked around and saw a young boy selling slippers. She called him over and bought the cheapest pair she could find with her last 50 naira. The old man was overwhelmed. "My daughter, this is too much. You don't even know me." "Sir, we're all children of God. Today it is you who needs help. Tomorrow it might be me." The old man studied her face carefully. "What is your name, child?" "Kemi, sir. Kemi Oladimaji." "And what do you do?" "I sell water, sir. It's not much, but it helps me take care of my sick mother." The old man nodded slowly. "Kemi Oladimaji, I will remember this name, and I will remember your kindness." After helping the man find his way to a nearby bus stop and giving him extra money for transport, Kemi returned to her selling spot. She now had no money for her mother's medication, but somehow she felt peaceful about her decision. That evening, as she counted her meager remaining coins, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, is this Ms. Kemi Oladimaji?" "Yes, this is Kemi." "This is Mrs. Johnson from Okafor and Associates. We're a legal firm in Victoria Island. Could you please come to our office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? There's a matter we need to discuss with you urgently." Kemi's heart raced. Had she done something wrong? Was she in trouble? "May I ask what this is about?" "I'm sorry, but I cannot discuss it over the phone. Please just come tomorrow." She gave her the address and hung up. Kemi spent the entire night worrying. She had never been to a law firm in her life. What could they possibly want with her? The next morning, she borrowed a decent dress from her neighbor and made her way to Victoria Island. The law firm's office was in a gleaming skyscraper that made her feel very small and out of place. The receptionist, however, greeted her warmly. "Miss Kemi, please come with me. Mr. Okafor is waiting for you." She was led into a spacious office where a distinguished man in his 50s sat behind a massive desk. "Miss Kemi, please sit down," Mr. Okafor said kindly. "I have some very interesting news for you."
Sir, if I've done something wrong? On the contrary, my dear. You have done something very right. He leaned back in his chair. 3 days ago, you helped an elderly man at the Victoria Island intersection. You gave him water, food money, and shoes. Do you remember? Kemi nodded, confused about where this was leading. That man, Mr. Okafor continued with a slight smile, was Chief Emmanuel Nwosu. The name hit Kemi like lightning. Everyone in Lagos knew Chief Emmanuel Nwosu, one of the wealthiest men in West Africa, owner of Nwosu Industries, philanthropist and billionaire. That was Chief Nwosu? Kemi whispered. Indeed. He had been visiting one of his construction sites when he was attacked by armed robbers. They took everything and left him stranded. He walked for hours before you found him. Mr. Okafor opened a file on his desk. Chief Nwosu was deeply moved by your kindness. He told me that in all his years of wealth he had never encountered such selfless generosity from someone who clearly had so little. He paused and looked at her directly. Miss Kemi, Chief Nwosu wants to change your life. Kemi felt dizzy. Sir, I don't understand. First, he is setting up a medical fund for your mother. The best doctors, the best treatment, all expenses paid for life. Tears began to flow down Kemi's cheeks. Second, he is providing you with a full scholarship to the University of Lagos, where you will study business administration. All fees, books, and living expenses covered. Kemi could barely breathe. Third, upon graduation, you will have a guaranteed position as a management trainee in Nwosu Industries, with a starting salary of 2 million naira per month. And finally, Mr. Okafor said, reaching into his drawer, he asked me to give you this as an immediate gift, to help with any current needs. He handed her a bank check. Kemi looked at it and gasped. It was for 5 million naira. Sir, this cannot be real, she stammered. It is very real, my dear. But Chief Nwosu had one condition. Kemi's heart stopped. What could it be? He wants you to always remember where you came from. He wants you to help others the way you helped him. He believes that kindness should multiply, not stop with one person. Kemi broke down completely, sobbing with joy, relief, and overwhelming gratitude. There's one more thing, Mr. Okafor said gently. Chief Nwosu told me about the woman who treated you badly at that same intersection. He's been making some inquiries. He picked up another file. Mrs. Adunni Balogun, wife of Mr. Tunde Balogun of Balogun Construction Company. It seems her husband's company has been involved in some questionable practices, cutting corners on construction, using substandard materials, not paying workers. Mr. Okafor looked grave. Chief Nwosu has significant influence with the companies that give out construction contracts in Lagos. Mrs. Balogun's husband will find it very difficult to get work in this city from now on. Sometimes, the way we treat others comes back to affect us in ways we never expect.
2 weeks later, Kemi was settling into her new life. Her mother was in the best private hospital in Lagos, already showing remarkable improvement with proper medication and care. Kemi had enrolled in university and moved into a comfortable apartment that Chief Nwosu had provided. But she hadn't forgotten her promise. Every Saturday, she returned to the streets, not to sell water, but to give it away free to those who needed it. She also started a small foundation to help other street vendors and their families. One Saturday, as she was distributing free water at the same Victoria Island intersection where her life had changed, she noticed a commotion. A woman was arguing loudly with a taxi driver. Her expensive clothes were rumpled, her makeup smeared, and she looked desperate. "Please, I just need to get to the mainland. My husband will pay you when we get there," the woman was pleading.
The taxi driver shook his head. Madame, everyone says the same thing. Pay me now or find another taxi. As the woman turned around, Kemi's breath caught. It was Adunni. Adunni looked terrible. Her once perfect appearance was disheveled, her jewelry was gone, and there was a desperation in her eyes that Kemi had never seen before. Their eyes met across the street. Adunni's face showed recognition, then shame, then fear. Kemi could have walked away. She could have enjoyed seeing the woman who had humiliated her now struggling herself. Instead, she walked over. "Madame, do you need help?" Kemi asked quietly. Adunni stared at her in shock. You're the water seller." "Yes, I am." Adunni's face crumpled. My husband's business collapsed. We lost everything. The house, the cars, everything. I don't even have money for transport." She looked at Kemi with tears in her eyes. "I remember how I treated you. I was terrible. You have every right to walk away." Kemi reached into her purse and pulled out 1,000 naira. She handed it to Adunni. "This should be enough for transport and food," she said gently. Adunni stared at the money, then at Kemi, then back at the money. "Why? After what I did to you?" "Because everyone deserves a chance at redemption," Kemi replied. "And because someone once taught me that kindness should multiply." As Adunni took the money with trembling hands, Kemi added, "If you need help finding work, here's my card. I run a foundation that helps people get back on their feet." Adunni looked at the business card. It read, "Kemi Oladamiji, Executive Director, the Water Bearer Foundation." "I don't understand," Adunni whispered. "How did you—" "That's a story for another day," Kemi smiled. "But the important thing is that everyone can change their story no matter where they started." 6 months later, Adunni had become one of the most dedicated volunteers at the Water Bearer Foundation, helping other women who had lost everything rebuild their lives. She often told people that the greatest lesson she ever learned came from a woman she had once tried to humiliate. And Kemi? She graduated top of her class, became one of the youngest executives at Nuosu Industries, and expanded the Water Bearer Foundation across 3 states. Her mother made a full recovery and often proudly told visitors about her daughter who changed the world 1 cup of water at a time. Chief Nuosu, who had become like a grandfather to Kemi, often said that meeting her had restored his faith in humanity. In a world full of people who pass by suffering, he would say, "Be the one who stops to help." If you were in Kemi's position, would you have given your last money to help a stranger? Do you think Adunni deserved a second chance after how she treated Kemi? Sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as opportunities to serve others. Sometimes the person you help today becomes the key to your tomorrow. And sometimes the smallest act of kindness creates the biggest change. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your story of kindness might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. Because kindness is never wasted. It always comes back, multiplied. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Your support means the world to me and helps me bring you more amazing stories like this one. It really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much.